YouTube? This is Narendra here, and today we are going to talk one basic topic which we most developer, especially the newbies, or actually the one who are trying to learn how to code, and they basically, or I would say mostly struggles with, and that something revolves around Git. Now, I'm going to talk about the basics of Git in here, and we'll try to take a deep dive, but at the same time I want to make sure that I don't do anything which can make this video or the overall experience of this video as quite complicated. So this video is intended for somebody who has no experience to maybe a minimal experience, and they're trying to get an adequate understanding of how Git and GitHub they works internally, and how exactly they can take their coding experience to a next level when they try to deal with repositories in and around the web. So before we start with, I want to do a quick highlight on the way I'm going to do this video. So I mostly find people who are either trying to use Gitpod or they use Visual Studio Code, which is one of the most favorite editor for the most developer. And actually, on my part, I do like VS Code quite a bit. Actually, not a little bit, but it's quite impressive in there. And for some of us who try to use some other IDEs like PyCharm or maybe something else or similar, and it's the process or the concept, they're going to remain the same. Now, there might be some interface variations across, because if you're using Gitpod, it's going to be a little different, and if you're using a local or native application for the Git committing or anything like that, it's going to be a little different, but the concept, they're going to remain the same. So first of all, let's start and try to understand what is Git in here, and why do we need it. Now, I can go ahead and I can start giving a definition from Wikipedia or someplace else, which will be quite bulky to understand and comprehend to start with. But I want to make sure that we understand Git from its basic perspective. Now, I would think of a Git as a mechanism to keep a track of my code base as it grows. Now, what do I mean by that? So imagine that we are trying to write a functionality with our code within our code base, and with every passing movement, we are adding new codes to it. Meanwhile, our team is also working in the same code base, and they're expanding across. Or somebody introduced a bug in the code base, and we need to revert back to the previous version of the code that we have published. Now, in scenarios like this, when we want to track what was the last change, what was the last commit, and I'll talk to you about the commit in a second, but if you want to revert back to the previous state of the code base that was working perfectly fine, we need a mechanism to do that for us. Now, one simpler way would be to write a code base into multiple files, and then we can always refer back to those files after some time, or if we require it, or if we need desire to do that. But the problem with that is that if we try to grow, or if the code base grows too much, this is going to be quite complicated to understand and establish a direct relationship between those multiple files, and we will end up writing another code base to manage that code base. Git tries to solve this problem for us. Now, like somebody wrote a nice piece of software to keep a track of all those. But if this talk doesn't make sense to you, we don't have to worry about that, because we don't need to understand how Git works internally and the mechanism and all that. For us to understand, what we can think of is, we can think of a Git as an anchor in the code base, and we can use that anchor to run back or push forward anywhere in the coding timeline wherever we want to. Now, that's a simple definition to understand what is a Git. Now, there are multiple tools available with Git. We can try to add multiple files we want to commit. We can add a specific commit message. We can create multiple branches. We can push and pull, rebase, and a lot of those things. So we'll talk about those things in a second, but let's try to take a look in here about multiple interfaces that we have to deal with. Now, most of the time, I have seen people, they're using VS Code, and this is one of the favorite tool that most developer likes to work with. But the thing to be noted in here is that the VS Code is a native application which runs on your operating system, whether you're using Linux or Macintosh, or if you're using Windows or maybe Chromebook. We can download Visual Studio from the website from visualstudio.com, and then you can click on the respective platform and you can download it. For me, I have already downloaded it and it's up and running fine for my side. I've tweaked it to my needs, and feel free to download and tweak it if you'd like to. The other way to do or use Git is by Gitpod, and that's what we generally use for our work in here for people who are new to coding or who are trying to understand it. Gitpod will basically require us to use one of the services either from GitHub, from GitLab, or Bitbucket. For now, I'll just use GitHub, and it's super easy to use. It'll just take your credentials and it can log you in. All right, so once you're logged in, you can either create a new workspace, or you can use can see all your previous workspaces. For our purposes, we're going to use GitHub to create a new repository, and we're going to leverage on our Git skills to learn more about how Git does work internally, or how we can leverage on the tool itself. Now, I want to highlight in here, Git and GitHub. These are two different things. GitHub is a place online. You can think of it's like a repository store which keep tracks of all your multiple assignments, whereas Git is a tool which can help you create and manage those repositories. So people sometimes they're confused about how this works internally, but I hope that the simple difference will make you understand that. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the new fresh repo. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to click on this new button, which will take me to this new page. I'm going to do a test, let me call it test Git, or maybe it's actually we should call it demo Git. That'll be more, or maybe Git demo or something like that. That'll be more suitable. I'm going to use the same one in my description. Optionally, if you want, you can add a readme file or a gitignore file. You can choose what kind of templating engine you want. For me, I don't want anything specific, but you can choose if you're working in if you're working in HTML or something, or maybe Python. You can choose Python in here. It'll generate the gitignore by default for you. If you want, you can choose a license as well. For me, I'm going to use Apache license 2.0, but based on your need, you can choose any. Again, I'm not going in detail for these things in here. Maybe you can do a separate video on that, but for me, I'm more focused on doing a Git demo. So let's do that. Let's create this repo in here. So as you can see, this new repo which is created, it's been created under my name. So as of now, I have one gitignore file, one license, and one readme file. And you can see by default, it has created one initial commit for me, which means the first commit was done. So now that we have Git repo created, the next thing we want to do is we want to open this workspace, the current repository in our workspace under Gitpod. So for that, what you can do is you can install this Gitpod extension from the Firefox extensions, or you can, if you're using Google Chrome, then you can install it from Google extensions. And once you do that, you can click on this extension and it will open the workspace for you. So it will take a moment, and so once it is done, we'll get back to the actual workspace where we'll see our actual code base. All right, so as you can see, my Gitpod has loaded and my current workspace is enlisted in here. Let me do one more thing in here. I'm going to use my VS Code to open the same workspace so that I can see the changes which I'm making on one side. I can see the changes same on the other side as well. This will help us to understand how Git works internally and how we can make multiple changes across on the same branches or across multiple branches. So I'm going to go ahead in here. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to say clone repo. I'm going to clone from GitHub. And you can see I have a default name Git demo which I just created previously. I'm going to click that. It'll ask me where I want to store my repository. So for our examples, I'm going to put that on my desktop. and it'll start cloning it. So when it's cloned, I'm going to open it. And as you can see on my right side, I have the same set of files which have opened in my Git pod. Not this one, in here. So I have a git ignore, I have a license, and I have a readme file. Okay, so if you see in the bottom in here, so by default we are on the main branch. Same is the case in here, we are on the main branch. Now I would encourage everybody who wants to write a new feature, who are working in writing a new code base, start with a separate branch for themselves. Now, what do you mean by a branch? Think of a branch as a replica of your original code base, but it's like a separate copy. You can make changes, you can tweak changes, you can do whatever experimentation you would want to do, but without affecting your original code base. All right, and try to create a branch in here. So I'll go back to this icon in here, and we'll say create a new branch. Let's call it branch, right? And if they press enter, now if you see at the bottom, now my branch name has changed in here, so it's called demo branch now. Okay, now same in the, if you go to the VS Code, if you're using VS Code, you can do the same thing in here. You can click on branches and you can say create branch, and I can call it like another branch in VS Code, and I say press enter, and there we are. So if you see in the bottom, we have a separate branch being created. Okay, now let's go ahead and do some basic operation as we do in the Git. So let me just create a new file in here. And let me call this file as index.html. And I'll use a small snippet. Let me just call it a demo for Git. And I think I'm not going to make any too much changes in here, but I'll just call it like a hello world. Small, very minimal. There's not fancy anything about it. So now if you do that, I can see that I have a small icon in here which says I have a new changes in here. But notice that these new changes, they're in the workspace of my Git pod. To verify that, if I go back in my original repo and if I refresh this page, see the changes are not in here. The reason for that is the changes which I made in here, they are not yet committed. Now, what is this commit? I would think of a commit as kind of committing to, committing to somebody, like you're ready to, take a next step. Now, until you're ready for the next step, you don't want to commit anything, right? So same is the case in here. If you're ready for, once you feel comfortable that yes, this is the final change which you were thinking of, and everything is working fine, as meeting your expectation criteria and everything, then you want to go ahead in here and you want to click on this small icon, this plus icon. And what that will do is it's going to stage the changes for the committing. If you have multiple files in here, let's go back. Let me just create a new file and let's call that as style.css. Now, if you see in here, I'll have two files being created. Now, I can choose individually which file I want to, add for my staging. If I'm comfortable with writing both the styles, I can simply click on this header, which will say like, I want to add all the, I want to stage all the changes which I have in here. But if I'm not comfortable doing that, I can individually select one particular file, whichever I'm interested in. But for our purposes, I can simply say just add both the files, or maybe we can do one by one if I want to. So let's say stage all. Once it does that, notice this has changed from changes to the stage changes. Now, what do you mean by stage changes? Stage changes means that Git is now ready to make those changes committed to the code base. But to commit that, we need a message in here. So like say, why you are adding those changes, why these two files were added in there. Now, I would add a specific, very small one-liner which will help me identify what is the main change which I'm trying to bring in here. So for me, I'm going to say adding index.html and style.css. In your case, it'd probably be something else. You might be adding like you might call it like added a index page with style or something. So this will make it more generic and more understandable that you're trying to bring in a complex piece of functionality if you're doing so, and that will make it more relevant than just adding one simple or maybe a complicated twisted line. So I would encourage to keep it short, keep it simple, and make it more understandable in that one particular line. So once we do that, I'm going to click this small tick in here and we'd say committed. Once we do that, the changes are now committed. All right, so does that mean we can see our changes in code base? If we go in here, if I say refresh this page, my changes are not in here yet. Well, they are not there because we have committed the changes, but we have not pushed them yet. And again, this is on a separate branch. And if you notice in here, the branch we are using in our main code base is the main branch. And if I refresh this page again, just to be clear, and if I click on this one, I still have one branch in here. And if I click on all the branches, there are no more any other branch in there. So why is the case? Because the changes which are made, including creation of a branch, and the changes which we made by adding index file and this style.tss file, they are still in my Git pod workspace. All right. So if I need to see all the changes, what I need to do is I need to click on this small icon in here, and I can say push these changes. So if I click on this one, so it will say this branch does not exist. Right, that's the case because we just checked and verified that. So Git is trying to say, hey, you are trying to commit to a branch which does not exist in the upstream. By upstream, we mean to say the actual code base. So am I trying to do that? And I'm saying yes. I'm interested in creating a new demo branch in our code base. So if I say okay, you see a small snippet in here. Now this branch is being created. So don't worry about the create pull request and not everything. But let's go back in our Git demo branch. If I refresh this page now, see, I have a new branch in here. This is a demo branch. And if I go inside, here are my files in my index.html and style.css. And notice this branch is a demo branch in here. But if I click on this one and if I choose my main branch, none of my new files which I added are in there, which means my code is on two different bases now. If I want to keep on working on my original branch, which is like unaffected branch, I can make changes in here, or I can keep it like a production ready kind of a thing. But if I want to make changes to my previous branch, which I just pushed in, I can go back in there and see what are changes in here. I'll talk about the create pull request in a minute, but let's go back in our Visual Studio Code in here, and notice that the branch name that we have in here is different. So if I go in here and if I say new file in here, and let's call it another .html, and let's have some code base in here, and let's call it I'll just call it another document. Save it, and I'll create a new file in here as well. Let me call it another style.css, and I'll push that. I'm not going to put any code in there for now, but you can see in the same like an icon which we had in a Git pod, this one, we have the same two files being created in here, and I can choose to add those two files by selecting them manually, or I can simply say all the changes. I'm going to stage all the changes by clicking on this button. But I want to introduce you to the concept of command line as well. So if you are somebody like me and you deal with a lot of command line interface, or if you're trying to learn command line interface, then what you'll do is you will press Control and tilt. This will bring up a similar interface just like a Git pod. And if I say git status, what will this do is it will tell you that you have created these two files, but these files are not being tracked by Git. That's why it's saying these are untracked files. And same is the case in here because we have not added them yet, right? So what we want to do is we want to add these files by using a command git add and then the file name. All right, so for now I'm simply going to say another file. If I do that, press enter, and if I say git status again, see, it says now there's one file which is already being added, but there's another file which is still being untracked. Okay, and if you see on the right side in here on the top, you say one file has been staged, but the other file is still in the changes, and that's not been staged yet. Okay, now I want to add another file as well, so let me just click select the file name. That's another style, and if I do that, if I go back, notice that the stage file have both the files added to the stage changes. Now next thing I want to do is, remember we did commit, we have to put a message in here. Same as with the command line, I want to say git, and I want to say commit, and I want to this A is for the added to the stage, but purely stages. I can remove that. And M is the message. What kind of a commit message do you want to say? So I would like to say it like added another HTML and style. All right, and once I press enter in here, notice that these changes, they'll go away from there. So we'll do that now. All right, once I do that, notice the changes have gone from there. So what it means is that the steps which we followed when we're using git pod, we added the files for the staging, then we tried to commit them, and and once the committing was done, these are being added to my commit, my local code base. They are not yet in a repo, right? So if you want to add them to repo, what we'll do is we'll say git, and we'll say push, right? Now remember, we are already on the branch in here, which is another branch in code. So if I go back in my original git demo branch, and if I refresh this page, and if I go back to all the branches, see, we don't have any other branch in here. We have a main branch and we have a demo branch. So if I come back in here on my VS Code on the right side, and if I say git push, so I need to set the upstream branch, because we don't have the right branch up there in the git repo. So we need to say git push set upstream branch origin and the branch name. So I'll copy that, I'll paste in here and push it. All right, there we go. So now it says this branch is set to being tracked with another this branch. What does this mean? It means that Git was able to create a branch with this name, and it's going to attach that branch with my local branch. Well, it's for the remote, and this is my local branch. So if I come back in my Git repo, and if I refresh this page, now you see there's another branch in here, right? Now if I click on that, see, this was a code base which I just added. So it's another file, and this is another style, which is the case if we see in our VS Code, right? Okay, so at this stage, we are able to learn how to use Git add files with the help of Git pod and with the help of our VS Code. Now this was one single step. We also try to understand how we can use our CLI Git tooling commands, to how we can add the files, how we can commit the files, and how we can push the files. Now same commands we can leverage, or we can make use in our Git pod in here as well. So for rest of the demo, let me just close my VS Code in here, because we're not going to rely on that much, but we will be taking full help from my Git pod in here. So let's do one more thing. Let's try to create a new commit, make a new change. Let me just add in my body in here. I'm going to say in my body I want to have a font size of, I don't know, maybe a extra large or something. All right, so that's a new change which I'm putting in my demo branch. Now this time we will be using our command line tool, which is in the bottom, and we'll try to commit the add the commit and push the latest changes to our branch from command line, rather than using a clicking option in here. So first step, let's try to understand what are the changes what we have. So if I say git status, it says, hey, you have modified one file in there, and if you don't add the files for the staging, these changes could be lost. So next thing we want to do is we want to add the changes which we have made, and why we do that by git add and the file name. So by the way, if you don't want to use style.css, you can simply remove and simply say dot. What that will do is any changes which have been made for all n number of files, they'll be automatically added. But that could be a problem. There could be a problem with that in case you don't want to, if I have more changes in here and I don't want to use those changes, then in that case could be a problem, because git add will actually add those changes for me as well. So best way to do would be to just add one specific file which I'm interested in. So when I say git add style.css and I say enter, and if I say git status, there we are. So now the changes has been staged. They are not yet committed. That's why it says changes to be committed. They are not yet committed. They are staged, so they are ready to be committed. So next step, we want to commit them. So we'll say git commit, and we'll say message. What's the message? Added font size, and press enter. Right, if I say git status now, so it says your branch is ahead of our original branch, which is the case because we added one extra commit in here, right? So if I want to publish my changes, I need to do git push. So yes, we want to publish. We'll say git push. Done. So the last change which we had was to add a font size is added to our repo. So to verify that, we'll go to our branches and we'll click on the demo branch. Now notice this is a demo branch which we used in here. So we will, if you're looking for a specific change, we need to look in the same branch where we put the message. So if you go inside and if we click on the commits, notice the last commit which I made. It was added font size. This is the same commit which we pushed from the command line just now. All right. So till this point, we were able to add new file, add changes, commit the changes, create a separate branch, push the new changes. But what if you want to pull the new changes from the branch? Like in our case, we had a separate branch and we created two different branches. One was the demo, another one was another branch in VS Code. Now maybe I want to have this another file, another style being added. But if I go back in my original branch, I don't see them in here. So for that to work, what we need to do is we need to create a pull request. Now pull request is like, you can think of pull request as like, hey, we got all the features that we want to work on under different branches. So what we want to do is any new branch, like in our case, we have two different branches. One is a demo branch, another one is another branch in VS Code. So any new branch, which the changes we want to push in, we can say that the feature for the another branch are ready. We are ready to commit or merge the changes from that into our main branch. So to do that, we'll simply go to pull request, click on new pull request, and we'll choose the branch with the from which we want to make the changes. So in here, this is the main branch, base branch. So we want to create a new pull request from another branch. So this is the new branch we want to put the changes in here. So I'll select the branch in here, and it's going to do a comparison. It will say, hey, the two files were added. One was another.html, another one was another style.css, and there's nothing in the CSS file. That's why this is an empty file in here. So if I do that, and I have to say create pull request, and it'll ask me to what changes I'm going to work on that. So for us, it's just like a demo, so I'll simply copy and paste this thing. But in real world, you would like to you may want to add a nice message in here and a description which will talk about what are the features you worked on and why you're trying to create this pull request. So once that is done, you will click on this create pull request. All right, now it will check whether this branch can be merged. So if you're working in a large team, somebody from the team it's going to take a look at the code and the commits which you have made in here. So in our case, because I'm not worried about this like on a higher level, like this is not a code breaking change, so I'll simply click on merge pull request. So what this will do is, if I quickly go back to my main branch in here, see, I don't have any files in my main branch here. So once I do this, once I say merge pull request, all the changes which have added to my branch in this commit message in here, these two files, they will be added to my main branch. That's why I have created a pull request. So it's going to pull the changes which I put in my branch and merge those changes in my original main branch. So let's go back and click on this one and merge the changes, and I won't say yes, confirm. So once it is done, it will say, hey, you're all set, everything from the branch blah 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 is added to the main branch. So if I go back to my main branch now, remember we didn't have nothing in here last time, like there was no code in here. Now if I refresh this page, see, I have just added 2 new files to this branch. Now it's on a main branch. So if I go back, I can safely delete this branch now, because all the code which I've worked on previously has been added to my main branch. So if you're not going to use it for any more changes, I would generally delete any leftover branches which are doing nothing, doing no good for us. So I'll simply click delete branch and it's gone from there. So if I go back in here and if I select on branch and I see all branches, so see my last branch which I just merged in and I just deleted that one in here, it's gone from here. Okay, so now let's talk about the pulling. What is git pull? You might have heard of it, this one before. So let's try to exercise this one in here. So in here, if I say git status, let me just clean that up a little bit. So if I say git status, this is a clean branch. There are no more changes which are left over which we need to put or nothing. So what we'll try to do is we'll try to pull the changes. Now it is possible that if you're working across multiple teams, sorry about that, you might end up overwriting changes from other team members. So the best way to prevent that is to always make sure that you have the latest code in your local branch. So to do that, what I'll do is I will do a git pull. Actually, I should check out to my main branch. So I'll go to git checkout and I'll say main. Now, by the way, you can do the same thing from here. If you click on this button in here, and if I say choose main branch, and if I click on this one, it'll take me to the main branch. Now notice this is being deleted because our main branch does not have the change. Now you must be wondering, in our main branch, if you go in here, we have all these changes in here, right? But in our code base, I don't see those changes in here. Where are those changes? Now the reason for that is that our current branch is behind our remote main branch, right? So I know that's kind of a twister to understand in a second. Now this is, remember when I said this is a local copy, right? The branching is a local copy in your side, in your local side. So until you push the changes, these changes, they are not published to the remote branch. Now same is the case for the pulling side as well. Until you pull the changes explicitly in here, we are not going to see the latest changes. And now for us, the latest changes would be another concept, these 2 files which we added in here. So let's go ahead and let's try to pull the changes. So if I say git pull, see, it says it has added 2 files, the another HTML, another style and HTML. And if you see in the top, these 2 files are already in here, right? So once we have those files added up in here, now we are confirmed that the changes which we made are exactly the same changes that we have in here. Okay, so the next step we want to do is we want to merge these changes in our main branch. Now we can do the same way. We will try to check out. Now again, you can click, sorry about that, I know it's very annoying, but we can click on this main in here and I can choose my another branch, which is a demo branch. But instead of doing that, let's try to use a command line and we'll say demo branch. So once I do that, notice my branch name changes in here. So which is equivalent of like switching from by clicking on this button and choosing a separate branch, or you can use a command line. I prefer command line because it's faster and it's very convenient to use. So if you want to use command line or by user interface clicking, you can do so. All right. Now in our case, once we switch the branch, notice the changes in our code base is gone. Previously we had another file, another .html and another style.css, but in this case it's not the case. So what we want to do is we want to bring those changes from the main branch to our branch. So to do that, we'll simply say git pull, and we can say origin and main. So what this will do is it'll pull up all the changes which we have in our origin main branch, that is this branch in here, including these two files which we just recently added, and it will add those two files in our main branch, in the demo branch. So let's do that. So now it's saying that it's trying to merge the branch from this from the remote branch to the demo branch. Now because this is a new change, what we can do is we can enter a commit message in here, but if you're trying to do a merge, you can simply ignore this message and close this one. Once you do that, it's going to create these two files just like the last time which we did when we do commit git pull previously, and those two files are in here. Now if you see, I have a style.css, I have another style.css, I have index.html, and I have another index.html. Now in this case, I have a full code base in my working branch, which is a demo branch in here. But if I go back to my code base, I still have the same two branches. If I refresh this page, I still have the older files, only those two files which were done like 15 minutes ago. Okay, so once we have all the changes, let's see if we need to commit anything, which should not be the case because we just did a git merge. And once we see that, everything is up and ready. So next step we want to do is we want to push these changes to our remote branch, so demo branch. So you can do a git push, or you can do a origin. You can be very explicit like where you want to push the changes. We can do the same thing from here as well. So if I click on these three dots in here and I can say push, it will do the same thing for me. So instead of doing from command line, I just did from the GUI. And if I go back to my main demo branch in here, notice that I have another HTML, another style, index, and another style.css. Now in this case, we were able to successfully commit all the changes, including multiple branches, combine those changes into one branch, and push the changes into our main branch. Now at this stage, our code is up and ready from multiple branches, but still it is not yet merged to the main branch. If you notice, in our main branch, we still don't have the code from the demo branch here, right? So to do that, again, we have to follow the same process of compare a pull request. So either you can go to this pull request link in here. If you click on this one, this will take you to the same page, or if you click on this one, because it's a separate branch and Git knows that these changes are not yet merged. So if you click on this one, it will by default select these two for you. So it can say, hey, I'm going to merge all the changes from this branch into my main branch. So if I do that, I can just copy paste this one from here in here, and it says it's able to merge. If there's any conflict, it will tell you. But for now, we don't have any conflict. We want to keep things simple. All right, so as you can see, it has added two new changes, index.html and style.css. Remember, last time we have another index.html and another style.css, but in this case, we have index.html and style.css, which is the case, which if you remember correctly from our last talk. So I'm going to say create pull request. Now, same like last time, it's going to check everything. And because I'm not going to do any review, but in your case, you might want to do a code review and everything. And I want to say merge these changes. To be clear in here, these are the changes which we did last time on the branch. So these are the same changes which you did, except the last change, which is to merge the remote branch, which was needed because we wanted to make sure that we have the latest copy of the remote branches. So once we are comfortable, everything is all right, I'm going to say confirm merge. Once we do that, we can delete the change, this branch, because we don't need it anymore. Once that is gone, I can go back to my main branch, and if I click now on the main, I see that I don't have any new branches in here, because all the branches which I had in here, they have been deleted and all the code has been merged in here. And as you can see, now I have style.css, another style.css, index.html, another .html, which is another separate file. So I think with that talk, which I just demonstrated in here, we were able to understand a basic terminology and how we can leverage on the multiple tools, whether from CLI, from command line tools, or whether we're using graphic user interface. We can come to the same conclusion that we can leverage on the multiple commands by from the Git by using adding new files, committing changes, branching. And then we can do pushing and pulling, and we can merge all the changes in here. So I think that will give you a complete picture on how we can, make use of Git in the best possible way. Git is a very nice tool. It's very handy. It will save you life a lot of times. And just always remember to make the nice and easy way to approach Git, because if you try to keep things more simpler, Git will be very handy. But if you try to make things quite complicated by undermining and twisting a little bit, or if you're not committing your code base properly, Git can't really help you in that case. So always make sure you have a proper commit message. It should not exceed too much. It should not be a full paragraph in there. It should be a one-liner, more than enough to make you understand what you're trying to commit in there. Make sure that you have multiple branches for different features that you want to work on. If you work on all the feature in the same branch, this is going to be quite complicated to debug and everything. Maybe you have a working code base, and if you add another branch or another fix on top of the same branch, things are going to get twisted. So always work in branches. And once that is done, you will be able to figure out any new changes or any new features that you want to work on as under separate category, and that's easy to manage. So I would encourage you to do that. And I hope if you like this video and if this was any helpful, please try to share this across for anybody who is trying to get a familiarity with the Git and GitHub or something which is similar to Git. Please help them learn. And again, thank you very much for watching till the end. You have a good day.